after or persecution. Stay away from the word I. This is not personal or about your opinions. You're speaking for your team and the company. Pretty important. Don't personalize this. Do your homework carefully. So if there's data that you're expecting to be, that employee to be measured by, make sure you've reviewed that data prior to your interview. These things are not to be taken lightly. They only happen like once a year. And you really want to take that opportunity, I mean a formal one only happens once a year. You really want to take that time to understand so that you can set appropriate goals and actions that you expect from your staff. Pre-formulate 3 to 5 goals for the coming year based upon the employee's job description, areas of weakness, or accomplishments expected. Goals should always create a stretch, but be attainable. You will find that to set more than 3 to 5 goals will lead to pretty much failure. You cannot, as you look at your own work days, everybody is so busy and so involved. You pick out 3 heavy-duty benefit goals and you go forward with them. Don't try to accomplish everything. And all goals, well, okay, never mind, I'll get to that, but stay with a small number of goals. But don't make them frivolous and don't make them cheap. Make them something that's going to bring benefit to you as a team leader or to the company and or the company. Now, once you've pre-formulated your own goals, have the employee come to the meeting prepared to discuss the previous 2 things that I said, which were the goals. So you will send the employee a copy of the questions for the performance review and let them come having had an opportunity to think about them and express their own opinions about those items.
So they can say, these are my weaknesses, these are my strengths, so you can get a feeling for what your own employee thinks their weaknesses are or their strengths.
Yeah, I mean, I can't specify what you're going to learn, but you will learn something. I mean, learning how they think. Remember that one of the main purposes of the review is to make sure your thoughts are aligned. Mm-hmm. So if you come on first with your thoughts, depending upon the other person's personality, you may immediately get a defensive reaction, which is going to produce nothing but the opposite of what your thoughts are. So there's nothing but gain to be had from finding out the other person's thoughts first. And then you meld that with what you're thinking and come out with some form of ability to communicate and find a common area of agreement.
So do you recommend that they fill theirs out and they come to you first? Because we will fill ours out too. So then...
Well, you don't want them to see yours. You just want them to see the categories, you know, on the performance review. Right. You send them a blank.
Right, but they'll bring that back, and then you'll have. But so then, if you would just need to make any edits or revisions based on your conversation with them, you would just do that before you gave them your final copy.
Well, I think it gives you an opportunity. You know, again, if these items on the performance review are objective, and you've got your data, it will be interesting to see whether an employee's perception of their performance ties into what the data says. You know, what are they using? And that's the way you ask those questions. Suppose if somebody comes in and says, you know, gee, I think I did a great job in this area, and you're looking at data that says no, the first thing you do is ask another question. Well, you know, how did you arrive at that conclusion? Because you're just probing, you're trying to understand where those thoughts are coming from. You've got the data in your pocket. You're going to make the ultimate decision. But the more tie-in you can get, the more buy-in, I should say, you can get from the person you're reviewing, the more the likelihood of success is in managing the person.
So Norma, this is the actual review that we're talking about right now?
Yes.
So wouldn't it be a good thing to, you know, discuss 6 months in advance, you know, this is what we're gonna be talking about in your review, so of course they can be working on
Well, I
these
think
things.
they
So it's not a surprise, because I wanna know, if I'm weak somewhere, I wanna show and be like, you know what, Robin, count on this, so when my review comes, you're already working towards those goals. It's not just a surprise.
That's the way it's supposed to be, Robin.
Right.
In other words, so after this session, because we're starting from the ground floor here, so if you're going to be reviewing somebody now, and maybe you have data, but they were never told about it, you know, it's good for you to know the data still, because it's an idea of performance. It's very hard to hold them accountable, because, but I think that you could still, if somebody is excels, or if somebody's ranking very poor among the data for their peers, you could probably still make a comment like, you know, this shows that you've been a little bit slow, you know, in this category compared to your peers. And so let's set some goals for you for the next time. It doesn't mean you have to disregard. It just means it's harder to hold them. You can't hold them accountable. But you can still talk to them. You can still communicate with them. So, and you can set your goals for the next period based upon that. And you're setting those goals with them, so the sure they'll know about it.
And sure, are we gonna get numbers as far as, based on the square footage, this is the time frame it should take you to do a presentation? So we have some sort of guidelines, so we can divide up our days and try to keep a timeline rather than, I'll just keep working, you know, just so you're.
John's introducing that at the department meeting this afternoon. He finally got everything together. And then Norm should have within 2 weeks all the stats, like that we should do, how many square feet per year. And then that ties into the incentive plan too.
A suggestion, would it, and I don't know if anybody else feels like this, but I think it would be helpful for me if I was an employee and for the people that work with me, that if you would send out an email and said, you know, we're getting it together, we're going to go back to formal performance reviews and attach a blank, and we want you to see what it is, this is what it's going to look like moving forward, blah, blah, blah. And then also then to send out to all the senior design ones, all the admins separately, et cetera, here is your job description, so that you know what you're supposed to be doing moving forward. So that everybody sort of gets on the, you know, on the same page that, okay, here we have it now, formally written out, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, this is my responsibilities, and here's my review. So when I meet with that person, or that, you know, any of us have a review in the upcoming months, be it a month or 6 months, you can't say that you
Right, you don't
the
know.
information.
Yeah.
Because I think they will be blindsided otherwise.
Yeah. And I will. I've just been I'm working. I have them almost all wrapped up. I have just a couple more to do, and then I'll definitely be able to send them out to each person and copy each manager. That's a good idea.
Is all this information going to be in the designer folders?
Yeah, most of them are in the job description file right now, and then I'm working on editing all the performance reviews. So I took them out for right now.
Okay.
Okay, let me mush on here. So, you're going to have the employee come prepared to, they'll have seen the performance review, and they'll be filling in their own assessment, self-assessment. Ask the employee being reviewed about their thoughts on how a shortfall in performance can be addressed. Listen carefully to understand their viewpoint, knowing that you can guide them to or insist that they raise the bar. So, if they have a shortfall that you need to talk to them again, let's listen to them in terms of why they think. Be careful that, we want to give the opportunity and we want to understand what people are saying, but be careful not to accept stuff which is just excuses that everybody has to deal with. Because a natural instinct to being critiqued is to provide an excuse. But you may learn something, and that's still the primary learning for all of us should never end. First of all, it makes life more interesting, even when you get to be my age. And second of all, it will make you a better professional. Understand that you have much to learn. We all do as we go through life. The more learn, the more educated you are, the more you learn, the better off you'll be.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
We're designers. Design is subjective.
Mm-hmm.
What's the criteria? It's not a numbers game.
Right. That for me is not the areas there. The only criteria there is a part of what's going to be installed for assessment of that is we are going to have client satisfaction questions, and hopefully we'll get the client to fill them out. If not, your marketing rep's going to fill them out. And so we're going to use that data as some measure. Now, there are other measures. If we lose a client because a designer, he wasn't happy with the designer's design, that's
But the process that we have in place right now
that's kind of.
with the review should prevent that, and it shouldn't be the lower level designers that are held responsible as much as the reviewers.
now we're talking about basically you guys when I say that.
And
that's your primary area
Yeah.
of responsibility.
we did put on those critiques too. Are you meeting brand standards? Although some of those, as we look at install photos, even those can be somewhat subjective. But have you reviewed the builder's plans? Is the furniture to scale? All those things are objectives, not subjective.
Right.
So, we try to get as many objective things on there as possible.
And we will be measuring that stuff. And we'll be counting. So, you'd be surprised if you think about things long enough. There's, in the important areas, there's usually a way, some kind of way to quantify performance. The one thing I would say, Mary, is that because in order to be a good designer, you have to have strong right brain capabilities. And sometimes that makes the type of thing we're talking about today more difficult because people have varying degrees of the left brain. But the purpose of this is to help you with that. To help you by letting this deal with facts that you and the company, Cheryl, have agreed upon are the criteria that we want to push this year. And if you do that, it should be easy if you stick to the facts and you be objective. It would be very difficult for you all to just come up with your own criteria and to have a really good list of objective criteria. So, but, anything that anybody has an idea of, I'm sure Cheryl would welcome your input if you think that something's missing off the performance review, et cetera. But it needs to be objective.